Good morning. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. It's Tuesday, June 16th, and you've tuned into our daily, weekday, 11 o'clock COVID conversation, where we have a dialogue, myself, our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, with one of the individuals either inside county government or outside county government that's functioning in this world of the COVID pandemic, which is now 3.5 months down the road. Today, our guest is Vincent Kopicki, who is the Commissioner of our Department of Environmental Facilities. Vince, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Mr. County Executive.
I want to point out Vince has this wonderful new beard that he's been working on. This is a COVID accomplishment, I assume?
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good. The guy who couldn't grow a little mustache, I respect what you've been able to accomplish, if nothing else. The Department of Environmental Facilities is not one of the better known departments of county government, although it affects our lives, in some very profound ways every day. So tell us, first of all, what does the department have responsibility for in general?
Sure. So our department is basically responsible for the operation and maintenance of 7 wastewater treatment plants or wastewater resource recovery facilities, as they're known. We have, that's on the solid waste side, we have our water department, which has ultraviolet light disinfection facilities. We have, on the solid waste side, we have 4 transfer stations, waste transfer stations, and we also have our RESCO plant, which is not operated by us, but we have an interest in that and we oversee it, where we have a waste to energy in Peekskill. And we have, at the transfer stations, we have a material recovery facility in Yonkers, which has is responsible for all our recycling. And we have the HMRF in the Valhalla campus, which is responsible for taking all household hard to recycle items from the public.
Now, these acronyms are inside baseball, which you know what they mean. The MRF acronym, MRF, stands for Material Recovery Facility.
Correct.
And HMRF and
Household.
Okay, household types things. So let's, I know the answers to these questions, but let's frame it so that people who may not know can do it. Every Thursday in the neighborhood that I live in the city of Rye, I put my recyclables out to the curb. And I see a truck that comes by that says City of Rye, and they pick up my recyclables. Every Monday, I put out garbage in my neighborhood, and I see a truck that comes by that says City of Rye, and it picks up my garbage. How does the county get involved in what I'm seeing?
Sure. So we're not responsible for the actual pickup, as you stated. However, that material, the recycling, paper, cardboard, plastics, aluminum, that's all brought to our materials recovery facility in Yonkers, where it is basically sorted and we market that material. The regular refuse, depending on where you live, goes to one of our 3 transfer stations. There it is put in containers and brought to the RESCO facility, where it's burned and turned into electricity.
So the municipal part of the process is the curbside pickup from my home, and the county role is from a transfer station all across all the participating communities, which I guess is the majority, but not all of the communities of Westchester County, from the regional station to the place of final resting place, either RESCO, where it's burned waste to energy, or in terms of the recycling facilities that have to do that. So let's go back to practical everyday reality. If I start my day in the bathroom, I'm going to use the sink and the commode, maybe the shower and so forth. What's the county's role in that process?
So any refuse or wastewater that is generated from there, depending again on where you live, will go to one of the 7 county-owned and operated treatment facilities. The actual sewage system is operated and maintained by each individual municipality. We also have approximately 194 miles of county trunk line, sewer trunk line, which basically conveys that to pump stations, which we have also 42 pump stations. And that is sent to the treatment plants where it's treated, and of course, the effluent is released.
And the pump stations are needed because this is a gravity-driven system. And sometimes the area that has the wastewater is at a lower level than the pipe that would carry it to the facility. So you have to pump it from that lower location up to the
correct.
Gravity location.
Correct. Yeah.
So and for those of you who live near pump stations, and then when I was a county legislator, I knew exactly on South Barry Avenue, on Magnolia Avenue in Larchmont, exactly where those pump stations were because they generated a certain amount of interest from the neighbors around them. So given the nature now of DEF, that it's involved in collecting or transporting garbage, it's transporting recyclables, it's treating wastewater, and it's also treating drinking water. How has COVID-19 affected your operations? What have you had to do differently because of this pandemic?
Well, in a way, our department was pretty lucky in the fact that we use PPE, or personal protective equipment, every day in our jobs. We have masks and gloves, depending on the jobs we're doing, self-contained breathing apparatus, Tyvek suits. So depending on the nature of the job, either solid waste or wastewater, we've been using protective gear all along. So what we've had to do is basically just change shifts a little bit. So we altered it so we wouldn't have people bunching up, where we would have maybe a 3-person crew working on a pump, and now we have a 2-person crew and they try to separate. Right. So we've shifted our manpower a little bit to suit it. 85% of our department is basically essential employees. So we've been basically working through this, since day one. Nothing stops. The wastewater doesn't stop, the garbage doesn't stop. So we have had to continually, just readjust our operations in order to keep people safe, but to keep everything moving. We've had daily meetings with all of our staff, with our plant supervisors, just to pass along information that we get, from above and the CDC and the executive, arm here. So there's been a constant flow of communication that we've had with our people, and I think that's really helped us quite a bit to keep our people safe. We've had very, very few cases, a handful, and I think a lot of that is the communication we've had and all the safety precautions that we've put in place, and actually that we had in place before.
Now, since people have been home all day, now we're coming back to work now. We're in phase, as we're speaking today, we're in phase 2, which is offices are back at some level of percentage. We have retail stores are back pretty much across the board, and restaurants are available for outdoor seating. We're not yet fully back to the indoor seating, which will come in a week when we go to phase 3. We've had people home more, and I assume that means they generate more waste, whether liquid or solid or whatever the circumstances are. Does that really matter much in the system? I know we have wastewater treatment plants of different size and capacities. Where I live, the Blindbrook facility is a very small one. And, well, if you live right in the immediate area, you're aware of it. Many people live in the community not aware of it at all. Over in Yonkers, we have a supersized facility. Have you seen any change in demand because people are home more? Has that been a factor?
We haven't seen too much because of that. Our major concern as far as wastewater goes is really storm events. That's where we see a lot more flow coming into the plants. We really haven't seen that so much as far as COVID related. We have seen quite an increase in recycling in our solid waste, in our MRF. I think we're up 25% of May of this year as
opposed to a year ago.
Opposed to a year ago, exactly. And I think a lot of that is because people are getting a lot more deliveries in boxes.
Right.
And I think they're home, and I think they're more conscious of recycling. The garbage, you would think, would have went up. Actually, we've seen a decrease.
Interesting.
Which is very interesting. I think a lot of that is because people are really focusing on recycling. They're home. They have the time to do it, and hopefully that will continue when this is all over.
Vince, as you look at these trend lines and you see some of these different things, the nature of some of the main functions that we have to do, or the programs that we have changed. We have had reinstituted just a couple of years ago under our direction household recycling days, which were a big thing, 30 years ago when I first got into the county legislature under county executives O'Rourke and Spano, and then they went away, and now they're back, but they've had to be postponed. Tell us a little bit about that process of those household recycling days.
Sure. The household recycling days, we usually have those. I think we've been having about four times a year or so. At FDR Park, at Playland, at our materials recovery facility in Yonkers. And you're right. Unfortunately, we've had to postpone those. We get a large number of cars. We have a lot of contractors that are actually taking the waste. So there's a lot of people. So unfortunately, we've had to postpone those. I would like to bring those back as soon as possible. However, in the meantime, the HMRF, which is the Household Recovery Facility, basically at the Yonkers, I'm sorry, at the Valhalla campus, right next to the medical center.
Right.
That has been open and continues to be open. It is runs Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 3, and that's for any hard to recycle or hard to get rid of materials like equipment that has Freon in it, household chemicals, pesticides. The first Tuesday of every month, we have our medication drop-off,
Right.
Which you can bring right to the HMRF. So that's continued to be in operation, and we would love people to come out and use that facility until we get the the HRTs back in.
Do you need an appointment to go to the facility in Valhalla?
It's recommended, just because we don't want to have too many people show up at one time. And you can go on our website and you can schedule an appointment, or the recycling number to call is 813-5425, and you can make an appointment there.
We'll make sure we put these numbers out on social media for those who may be watching on Facebook. We'll make sure you have a post that you can see this and track this. The benefit of the HMRF is you do it at your convenience, Tuesday through Saturday. The household recycling days, as mentioned, have generally been done in Yorktown in the north, Yonkers in the south, and Playland in the middle of the county, or off to the South Shore side of the county. I gather we're going to try to have those days later in the year to the extent possible. Depends on when everything lifts up and opens up, in terms of the big situation. Also, let's talk a little bit about our efforts jointly on food waste recycling. There's been a big effort to try to identify that for the county, to try to play a regional role in helping the transportation side of this. And we did renegotiate our deal with Wheelabrator for Resco plant to allow for a carve-out so that a certain amount of these items could be handled differently than just going to the Resco plant. Talk about that for a little bit, if you would, Vince.
Sure. The carpet we had before with Resco was, I believe, 50,000 tons a year, and that was for basically like a pilot program. And now we negotiated the contract where we can carve out, I believe it's 65,000 tons every year going forward. And the reason we did that is not just for food waste, but for anything else that we would want to pull out of the waste stream. So right now we're working on it's a site right next to the HMRF, right on the Valhalla campus. Right opposite it is going to be our compost center. So that is going to take food waste, about 2 tons per week. We're going to be working with either a municipality or farmers markets. Okay. Still haven't decided yet how we're going to work that out, but it's under design right now. The design should be done in about 2 months and a couple months for bidding, and then hopefully have it constructed by the end of the year or early 2021. And that's where we will be taking organics that we gather and mix it with the food waste to turn it to compost that we could use at county parks or facilities.
I know that a couple of communities, Scarsdale, notably Rise City, have curbside food scrap collections. A number of other communities, not all of them, but a number of others have set locations, usually at their DPW facilities in the communities, where you can go and drop off food waste in the same way that during the middle of the week you can drop off some of the recyclable products and so forth. And that portion of the waste stream, if taken out of the waste stream, does involve some savings of money for the communities, not for the individuals, for either way. But what it also does is it provides a better environmental way to handle it, because if it can be composted in some situation, it's better than going through the burning process, which contributes that incrementally more to the pollution and so forth. There's a number of communities in Westchester County that are not part of this consortium, and I gather those are communities that have sufficient land and they can do their own plans for how they handle these things. Is that basically the gist of it?
That's correct. And in fact, that's the main purpose of this compost facility, that we're just basically to show communities and organizations what you can do with your food waste. We would love to have each municipality, take a look at this and learn from it, and maybe they could put something similar to this in one of their yards, and also some of the municipalities that are outside of our refuse district also.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of it has to do with the unique realities of these communities. We have 45 incorporated municipalities of some sort, and some of them are huge. Yonkers, 200,000 people, Village of Buchanan, 2,000 people, and some of them have a lot of available space. Some of, again, the northern communities along the eastern border with Connecticut, but then some are very densely populated. Village of Portchester, city of Mount Vernon, where I grew up, those are very densely populated areas, and they may not have the land or not. So as a county, we've taken on the regional responsibility to do some of these things. But if the local government can provide the services locally, there's no reason for them to look into the region, which is fine. It's there. It's a coalition of the willing, as was said once a number of years ago. You've had the chance to serve in this government as a commissioner of the Department of Public Works, as well as DEF, and now doing DEF, every day. Do you get a sense that people really understand and know what you do, and what does that do for the workers? Do they go home at night, I work hard, honey, but nobody really knows what I do, or do people understand that what you're doing is an essential part of what we provide?
I think a lot of times people don't understand exactly what our department does. Again, DPW is also not your traditional municipal DPW. DPW doesn't pick up garbage. There are limited streets that are snow removal, just county streets. But it's a totally different beast. It's basically like a project management arm of the county. And I think those people are I will work with them, great people, and I think that they, just like DEF, they're committed to their jobs. We've had people come in at night, and just a couple people working at night. It's like, what are you doing here? It's like, it's way past, when you should have been home already. But they really take pride in their work. DEF, our guys and girls have worked really hard, during this whole coronavirus, and we've had. There are essential workers, and they have to be there, but they've really stepped up, their game. There's a lot of pride in what they do, and even though we're not well known about what exactly we do, people flush their toilet or they throw something in the garbage, like you had said earlier, and you kind of forget about it. There's a lot of pride in what they do.
I think it's one of the key issues in county government that we deal with all the time. Those of us in elective office, those who deal with the public on an ongoing basis, we hear people say, "Why do we need county government? We don't need it's another bureaucracy. It's another level of government." Well, you don't need county government per se, but there's services that you're talking about. Vince is talking about here today that are essential services. They're going to have to be done by somebody. In the smaller states, they may be done by the state government. May take on these responsibilities. And in some cases, if you have a big rural state, maybe you don't need government to do it at all. Everybody's got enough to do composting in their own backyard if you're in a town out in the Rocky Mountains or the Plains states with lots of open space. But it's more a question of what do you know the county government does before you can so blithely say, I don't want to be concerned with what it does. And understanding that the treatment of sewerage, that the complete disposal of garbage, recycling, and we didn't get into too much to the treatment of the water system to make sure that impurities are factored out. This is the work of people in county government. So when folks pay their taxes, and this year they had a tax decrease, but in those years where they get frustrated by their taxes, it's important to understand what's the correlation between what are the services. And you may not recognize that you get a service. You may know the household recycling days. Those are events. You may know the park system because you go to one of the parks, but you may not know all the inside situations. As I've often said, if you don't wind up in jail or with a relative in jail, you don't realize that we have to run a correctional facility. And when you run a correctional facility, you also have to run a probation function to go with the correction function. You may not realize that it's essential for you to need a public bus because where you live in the county or your personal resources, you don't need the public bus. But there are those who do need the public bus, and you see it in effect. So, Vince, for whatever your hardworking men and women do that they're not appreciated for, let me tell you, we appreciate it. We thank you for your professional service, and please, make sure all of you folks know how much we value because we'll get a call right away if the toilet doesn't flush right away, and they'll want to know why their county government isn't getting it done. So we've been talking with Vince Kopicki, who is the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Facilities, here on the COVID Conversations. We will be back at 2 o'clock. We'll be out in the field, I believe, at the Kensico Dam Plaza, and we'll give the update on statistics at that point. We'll have a couple of announcements. We'll try to keep it as focused on what we're doing here in the county government and how we're trying to implement some of the things to get us through this pandemic, the financial realities that follow, and of course, the social justice movement that's at hand right now across the United States. I'm George Latimer, County Executive. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe. We'll see you at 2 o'clock.